Okay, I've been thinking about this a lot, so I probably should just make a video about it, just to get my thoughts out into the wind. And I wanted to make this video about New World, specifically New World Eternum, or New World in general. I was really excited to have it as my MMO, because if you're an MMO player, you have your MMO, the one that you go back to, the one that you play, the one that you do the dailies for, the one that you do the activities for, the one that always drives you, and you have a community of people that you always rely on and always can go back to. Right? That's the point of an MMO. An MMO isn't just the multiplayer experience, it's the bonding, and it's also in the back of our mind, we know it's going to be a forever game. There's always going to be something out there for us to do. A new quest, a new task, a new craft, a new person. Something. There's always something that needs to be done. But in the case of New World, it's not a forever game, and it's kind of left the genre of MMO, and the creators also market it as an ARPG, which is kind of wild because everyone and their grandma knows that it should be an MMO. It has all the bases of an MMO. It has everything that you would expect from it. A storyline for an RPG that's kind of dark. It has crafting. It has gathering. It has the multiplayer aspect. It has team building. It has raids. It has dungeons. It has everything that an MMO is supposed to have. But what it doesn't have is that forever factor. And that's where it falls short every time, all the time. And the reason I can talk about this is because I've really hoped for something that was like New World, that was a forever game, and I think BDO is probably the closest thing that could be like an MMO replacement, or not an MMO replacement, a New World replacement. But I don't want to do the pay-to-win mechanics of it. And yeah, you can farm and get to that point, but at the end of the day, the beauty of New World, well, I'll get into later, but I just don't want to do the pay-to-win aspect of BDO. And New World was always such a short-come disappointment. And it always feels that way. And I've put in 1,500 hours into this game, so that's a long time. Let me Google calendar 1,500 hours real quick. Let me fit 1527.2 hours, 2 days. Is a month? 2 months? 63.63 days? So 2 months worth of gameplay time in days I've put into this game. And I can't really, be like, oh, I'm a bigwig, because I have a friend that almost has 5,000 hours in the game. Jesus. But it's always just missing something. And I want to just go over some of the cool things about New World that compelled me to play the game. Not once when it released fully to the public, but twice when it was released to console players. I really liked the story and the world building. It was just dark and mysterious, and it was captivating. The fact that the world was encapsulated in these zombie-like apparitions, and there was a spiritual aspect, and you didn't know what was going on entirely, but you knew that to get to the heart of the island meant fighting your way through the living dead to get to a point to free everyone from the shackles of undeath. That kind of Dark Souls kind of storyline compels me as a Dark Souls player or a Souls player, and it really helped me grasp and navigate through New World seamlessly. The combat, also Dark Souls-like, was also nice, and it allowed me to really experiment with all the weapons that they have. And they have a lot of fun weapons. The bow, for example, is a lot of fun. You can play it a lot of different ways. You can play it standing still and shooting as many crazy arrows as you can, like the green arrow, or you can be more agile with it and you can bounce around, throw traps down, and make sure that you're always trying to escape and get the last pot shot off. The great sword is another one that's really fun, where you just mindlessly swing your sword around without any care in the world and try to heal as much damage as you can, but also crank out as much damage as you can. That was fun. The other parts of combat that were fun was balancing your armor and balancing the different weapons that you had to use. There were different weight classes that compared to how much defense you had, how much healing you had, how much attack you had, how your rolls were going to look when you did roll. If you rolled an iframed, or if you did this little stoop step that lets you know you were heavy. Things like this, the little mechanical plays of it were fun, and especially in PvP. The mechanics in PvP made it so much fun because people had to think outside the box just a little bit. Yeah, there was the basics that we learned through the gameplay loop, but when we put it in PvP against other players, you had to navigate all the mechanics you learned against the NPCs and dungeons, and then use it against players that are always trying to think 3 steps ahead to what you might do. And besides fire staff players, they don't think 3 steps ahead, they think 1 fireball, 2 red fireball, blue. Really annoying. And speaking of dungeons, for the most part they were fun. Besides Starstone Barrow, I don't like Laser Beam, that's kind of gimmicky as hell. But, you know, the dungeons were really fun. They were long or short, and they always had something to offer and gave you a more in-depth scenario to the world that you're in, and gives you more story building, which was always so cool. And whenever you go into those dungeons and you get that great loot for the first time, it just felt good. Especially the artifacts that you could get in the game that kind of changed the way you played the game. You know, depending on what kind of build you were looking for or what kind of build you were trying to do. That was so much fun. And the builds that you had in general, you could do anything. That was the best part about building up a character in New World, is everything is viable. As long as you knew how to play it, it was viable. For example, my build in New World was a heavy build. I played a heavy character. I had a lot of defense, but I also had a great sword and a rapier. So I had a lot of dodge and a maneuverability. I had a lot of escape. And so when I needed to do dungeons and raids, I would lock in as a DPS, and people would, you know, poop on me because I'm a heavy build, which inherently loses DPS just because you're heavy, but I would still output just as much damage as a person doing full DPS. I didn't lose any damage. I still had the same amount of damage, but I was heavy. It was so much fun. It made so much sense, and it was cool because everyone could just experiment and knick-knack, really fine-tune their build to make it theirs, and this character, this player that you're putting into the world, your own, and make a staple out in this world to say that I have done this thing, and people can either look at it in glory, look at it in gawk, or copy it. It felt great. That felt so good. And just to reminisce on all the things that you could do in that game, it was fun. And I liked crafting too. I'm a crafter when it comes to MMOs. I like sitting there mindlessly, chopping down trees, picking up herbs, skinning boars for endless hours, and making something that most people couldn't make or didn't want to put in the time to make. And, you know, try to either sell it on the market or give to friends. Oh, and the market was such a smart idea. Now, the auction house in WoW works similarly, but in New World, there are no NPCs that sell you anything. It has to do everything with the market. In the real-time money market, not like buying things with real money, but like the real-time gold market auction house that New World had was so fun to see because you could either make a lot of money or a little bit of money. But not only did it support players for achieving goals that they had in their mind but didn't want to put in the time, but the people that put in time for goals that they were doing but had extra materials, they can make a profit off it too. Everyone won in the case of this market, and everyone benefited as long as you knew what you were doing. And it was exciting. But, you know, it falls short of being a forever game. And out of all the 1,500 hours I put into it, which is 63 days in the real world, I couldn't put 63 days straight into it. And it was pretty much 30 days of game time in one chunk 3 years ago when it started, or 4 years ago when it started, and 30 days of game time recently, I think in the last year when they released it for consoles, after that. And I had a guild, I had a lot of friends, we made something out of it. But we started to peter off and die out. We just stopped playing because there was nothing to do. At the end of everything, we've done all the dungeons. We got all of our builds to max level. Everyone that wanted to craft already got 250 level crafting. And then all we had to do was run the last raid. And by the end of it, when we did it with our group, it was easy. But when we did it with other people, we pretty much carried people for free and we didn't realize it. So that kind of stunk. But we would just run the raid weekly to get the same rewards that we got every week that added no benefit to us. And we got bored. We got bored quickly because now we didn't know what to do. We could run the PvP track and grind PvP out, but that starts to get monotonous. There was only 2 PvP modes, and there's still only 2 PvP modes now. Oh wait, scratch that. There are 3 PvP modes now, which are Capture the Flag, PvP on the Coral Reef, or PvP on the Coral Reef, or the other map, you know, Big Battle PvP, or there is 3v3 arenas, right? But doing those over and over again just feels bad. Yeah, you can get different opponents and you can turn the tide of the game doing different things, and you can say that my peener is bigger than yours because I'm holding down a point longer than anyone else without having to have any backup, just the heal pot. I don't have to have a pocket healer, or I'm so good at dodging and escaping and, you know, pulling out those pot shots with my musket or my void gauntlet that I don't need any help. That feels great. But when you have to do the same thing over and over again just for the chance of getting some PvP artifact gear like Pestilence, for example, it just feels like it drags on forever. And you can make your own Gorgon gear eventually when I quit, but the drop chance on that was low, which, you know, helped the market out to go back to that point. But it felt monotonous doing the same thing over and over and over again to get nothing new out of it. And I think the only other thing that people could really do to make it fresh and exciting was doing elite chest runs or world trains or world tours, whatever they wanted to call it. And those were exciting for a bit because you could race with like a Zerg of 100 or plus people and just pickpocket all of these different places for whatever loot that they might have and roll the dice on every chest that you got, and maybe you can get something rare, right? Rare stuff for your trophies, rare stuff for crafting, rare glyphs for increasing your weapon damage, things like that. But after you do those enough times, you realize, A, I don't have to be with these people, I can just do it by myself, and B, I don't get anything new. And eventually, there are no new rare things for people to grab. Someone will have it, and once a player gets that thing, there's no reward for having more of it. Yeah, you can put it on the market, but then the price of the thing goes down in value, and so it doesn't become as rare. And it's really evident because this is a real-time player market And so just like stocks, if one person has it, it's valuable, it's rare. 3 people have it, it drops down in price by 1/3. You get the gist. So those ECRs were after a while not so lucrative. And when I played the game on the first run, me and all my buddies, all we did was go into Shattered Mountain and do what we called a Shattered Mountain money loop. And we would run around Shattered Mountain by ourselves and do a specific loop over and over again because it reset perfectly and hit all those chests that we needed for a chance to get something rare. That was fine for a time, but you just get tired of doing the same thing over and over again. There was nothing new. There was nothing new you could achieve. And sure, you can make another character for a different server, but what's the point when you have server transfer tickets and this is a classless game? It doesn't make sense to make a new character like in WoW, where you can make a new class, know what you know from the first time, and do it faster in order to get something fresh out of the game. It just didn't feel worth it. And that's what it felt like near the end of New World, is that it just didn't feel worth playing the game. And you put in all these hours, and you know, it was 8 months of actual real life time that I played. It wasn't 30 days because I'm not going to play 30 days straight. You know, 24 hours a day. It was, you know, 8-hour chunk here, 4-hour chunk here, 2-hour chunk here, spread out between 8 months with a company, a guild that I had for that long. And we did everything. We tried to exhaust everything we could to just keep ourselves in the game, and eventually we had to say, you know what? We can't do anything else. We're done. And as I'm making this video, I see that they have a Season 9 roadmap. And Season 9 roadmap has Capture the Flag, 3B The Arena, new world bosses, PvP updates, artifacts, and perks. So they don't have a new zone, they don't have a new raid, they don't have new things that you can do, they don't have a new weapons yet. Yeah, there's nothing there quite yet, and maybe I should give them credit because it is a new MMO in the grand scheme of things. This game came out in what, 2000 or something? Let me look. New World came out in 2001, so it's a 4-year-old game, and people wanted it to be great, you know, because it has so much potential. But then you just have nothing to do, and they just make these new seasons where they go, guess what? Players, we've been listening to you. We know exactly what you want. Why don't you just do the same thing but differently? Brother, what the hell is that? Yeah, the first time that was great. Oh man, I can do the same thing on a different server, but I can do it faster? Awesome. That felt great because if you knew how to speedrun some of those things, like getting the artifacts to whoop people's butts, or speedrun crafting, oh wowee, felt great. But after a while, when you get to those new seasons, and you see what the seasonal servers do, they just spoon feed you so much nutrients, it doesn't feel rewarding at all. You don't get anything out of it. You just speedrun to the end, and then you're like, alright, I guess I finished that in like 2 weeks. Great. What else do I have to do? Oh right, wait till the seasonal server's over, go back to my main character, and get whatever little peanuts of a reward and good boy trophy I get from doing that seasonal server. Wowee, great. And the biggest issue with New World that everyone knows is a phrase that I got from a friend, and it goes like this: New World, new bug. Why on God's green earth when you have Twitch, a successful bookstore, and a commodity market, that you branch out into gaming, have a new pay-to-win game like Black Desert 2.0, and you can't figure out how to make gaming code well, and I really don't have a high horse to sit on because I can't code anything besides HTML, okay? If you have a website, great, I can make that perfectly. C++, I'm still in the learning phases, the real early learning phases. I read some books, yeah, but maybe I'm not overstepping here when I say for 3 years or 4 years as this game has been out, and I've been in it twice on 2 major time chunks, it seems like I shouldn't have reoccurring things that I remember from the first time. Why is your game made out of spaghetti code? Why, when you do an update, does something else mess up entirely that wasn't part of the update? Because you don't know how to make your code well so that things like this don't happen. And it's an ongoing issue. Everyone has just learned to accept it at this point. Is that when there's a new update or a new patch, we're like, okay, well, in another 2 hours, we're gonna get a hot fix for this patch because something else is broken. I'm sure everyone that started the game remembers the floating bug when you teleported. So when you teleported from one location to another, you would just be in a floating animation, floating into the sky. You couldn't interact with anything, you couldn't get off the teleporter, you were just stuck there. And you had to close out of the game, wait like 10 minutes, go back into the game for it to be fixed, and you would fall and take fall damage, and hopefully you didn't die, because that would loop you into something different. It was interesting. And I think those qualms, where we look at this game with so much potential and we see how it's just not going in any direction we want, is a little frustrating. Dude, even WoW, as old as it is, knows to make some new content almost yearly. How many expansions are there? They're making another one. I just played The War Within like last year, right? And I flew through that. That being said, I'm a new WoW player, and I went through all the WoW War Within stuff, besides the Mythic Dungeons. That was too sweaty for me, but I did that in like a month or two, you know, and I got the majority of what I paid for that time. And now they're coming out with a new expansion the next year, so it gives me more to look forward to. And that means I should start working on doing more of the main story, trying to get more farming done, doing all this stuff, you know? Things of this nature, where it puts me in the mindset that I should play the game again. Every update that New World has done does not make me want to do that. There were no new zones, there were no new raids, there were no new dungeons. There are just different ways to do the same thing I already did. I don't care. Make new stuff. I paid my money. I paid a lot of things. It's been 4 years since you did anything new. Actually, scratch that. It's been 2 years since you did anything new. And the new things you did was change a zone that nobody remembers into the Elysian Wilds, or out of the Elysian Wilds, and you made Cutlass Keys into a baby mode zone, into an elite zone. Okay. And you added a couple dungeons, but that was like 2 years ago. Wait, when was the Elysian Wilds update? Let me look. Elysian Wilds update. Rise of the Angry Earth was in 2023. Game came out in 2021. Rise of the Angry Earth and the updates for that were in 2023 with the 65. So it took 2 years for them to get a zone done. Oh no, look at that. The southeastern tip of Eternum, formerly known as First Light, is now the Elysian Wilds, so I was right. Yeah, so a baby zone you turned into the Elysian Wilds, and you turned Cutlass Keys into an elite zone. And now you have 62 plus dungeons, the Savage Divide. And you had Glacial Tarn at that point. Yeah, because I stopped playing the game for 2 years. I didn't even start Elysian Wilds at all because it didn't feel good. Man, when did Glacial Tarn come out? Glacial Tarn. Glacial Tarn release. As part of the Eternal Frost, so it came out in 2023. Dog, so you... Okay. New World, 2 years to make a new zone that was an old zone and change another zone. Took 2 years to do with the money that you had to come up with that. Which is cool. And new dungeons. And we had the Hive of the Gorgons. It's been 2 years already. Are you gonna come up with something new to bring us back in so we have something to do? Because at this point, I feel like you've made enough money from all these people to make new stuff. In development, Season 10, new zone, new raid, endgame precision systems overhaul, new gen umbrals. Maybe they're gonna do something new. Maybe I'm gonna shut up and play New World again. I don't know. But in this time right now, it feels bad. It feels incomplete. It feels like I can't do anything else. And maybe I'm overstepping, and maybe I'm just talking out my butt. But after playing it since the jump, pretty much, and having to quit suddenly every time, I just feel like it needed to have more. And that's what we were all waiting on. I don't think a majority of the players hate New World just to hate. Well, I can't speak for all of us, but the majority of us, I feel like, don't hate New World because there's something to hate. I think we just didn't like New World because it had so much potential and none of it went anywhere. It was just squandered. It just stopped being fun. And in an age where games like MMOs have some significant updates or some significant stuff to do, it felt lackluster. Because the new zones and new areas, there were no cool rewards for doing those side quests, and there weren't a lot of side quests to really do, honestly. Like Final Fantasy XIV, for example, which I've also played. I'm a new player going into that, and I can speedrun the main story, just bum rush the main line story, right? But I could also take my time and do some of the side quests that are there, and each zone feels so significant that I feel like I'm always doing something. There's always different ways to play the dungeons, and there's different people to interact with, where I feel like I'm always able to do something. I'm always able to, craft something or do something else or interact with something here to make sure that my world and game building is complete. And WoW, when I play WoW, I can do the same thing. I can go zone to zone and do these quests or these abilities where I feel like I'm really world building here or making something out of myself. In New World, each zone is relatively small, and everything I do there is pretty much done in an instant. And there's no reward or there's no need to do anything in the other zones at all, it seems like. Maybe to collect gold, but the gold doesn't seem like it's there. So it feels really bad. I don't know what to do at all, and that's where I feel stuck, and I wish they would do something where they learn from their friends, where I feel like you could do something. Yeah, man, that's my opinion on it for sure. And reading this stuff, I hope that season 10 actually gives us something that we're looking for. I'll see. I'll let you know, because I like the game. I like where it's going. I even had to play Chrono Odyssey to get my fix. But it feels bad playing a game that just... No, it's not everything you hoped and dreamed. It's like looking at a McDonald's burger. The advertisement says one thing, and then you get that slop in the plastic wrap, and you're like, ugh. Bon appetit, I guess.